Praise and worship the Lord. Let your voice be heard that will give him glory. Author and senior writer of Crosswalk, Logan urges us to strip away the stigma associated with being an outsider, to cease judging those who prefer solitude, and most importantly, to learn to truly see others for who they are. Her new book, The Wallflower That Bloomed, urges us to strip away the labels such as shy, quiet, awkward, or simply different. These descriptors, casually assigned by others or even self-imposed, confine those to the sidelines, silencing their voices. This is her story. This is today's Nashville. This is faith. Kelly, it's so great to sit down with you. Welcome to today's Nashville.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So I have heard a lot about your book, The Wallflower That Bloomed. Is it your story?
It's kind of a bit. It starts a little bit with my story, but really it was what I feel like the Lord wants to say to anybody who has ever questioned if they're a wallflower or they're not quite sure where they belong. So it's kind of a story for everybody.
Well, I want to take you back to your beginnings. Where are you from?
I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. And what was it like growing up there?
It was fine. I don't know. It was, we lived just in the suburbs, and Richmond is quite the boisterous and notable town, but I am really blessed the childhood I got to have. I thankfully grew up in the generation before things got too crazy with the internet, so I definitely had the ability to go play, and the only time you would go home is when the sun went down.
Isn't it amazing how things have changed?
For sure.
For the kids and everything.
Yeah, even with my brother, he's 6 years younger, but he had such a different kind of childhood than I did. He had so many more electronics and the internet and everything else.
And you didn't?
Not as much, no. We had Teddy Ruxpin, but that's about it. So,
what was life like for you in school?
School was hard. I got bullied a lot. I was very introverted. I still am. I was very shy and kind of nerdy, which I don't think there's anything wrong with, but the other kids weren't exactly the kindest at it. And so I normally felt like quite a bit of a loner. That did affect my self-esteem in time.
How old were you when it started?
Actually, pretty early on, I remember in second grade, just feeling, and actually this was one of the personal stories I share in the book, I remember just feeling like I was the remainder. I was the one that was kind of left out from the group, or I was kind of the leftovers.
Do you remember a time when that happened?
Yeah, with that, I was having a birthday party, and I wanted to invite this one girl that just seemed like she would be a nice friend, and I considered us friends. And so when I went to go walk up and invite her, she didn't actually even know my name, and I counted her as one of my friends. But the fact that she didn't know my name made me just feel so sad, and just kind of left out. But I look back at that now, and I think, well, that's okay. Life didn't stay there, but at that time, that hurt a lot.
Did you make new friends at school, or did you have friends, or?
Yeah, in high school especially, I had a couple of really good friends, and I'm really grateful for that. One I'm actually seeing on Saturday, and she lives here in Nashville now. And so it's neat that even all these years later, we're going to get to reconnect. But I certainly didn't have a lot of friends, but I did have quality friends, which I was grateful for.
Tell me about a time in high school that you write about this book, and did you reach out to anybody, or did you just keep it all internally?
I did share a lot with my parents just throughout high school, just kind of the struggles I was going through and some of the things I was feeling. Tried to share some with youth group leaders, but they can only do so much. But I did feel like I wasn't entirely alone in the world. And I think one of the biggest parts of that was the friendship that developed with the Lord. And he really became my greatest friend and companion. He still is and always will be. But I really learned by not having as many friends and feeling so bullied in high school what it meant to really connect with Jesus.
So you were bullied in high school also?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah, there were two girls in particular, and I decided to start the book in that way, just so anyone who has ever felt that way could feel like the author was somebody who could relate to them. And it didn't feel like somebody who was just cold or callous or, imagining what it would be like. But instead they had a real life story. But I get made fun of from just about everything, from my clothes to if I would say something in class and answer a question, they would just find anything to target me with. And I don't know why they wanted to just be so mean.
It is tough to be a young woman, a young teenager, because girls are mean.
Yeah.
And you probably know why they did that, because, it's just like it empowers them. They feel like it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I think so. I think they probably weren't secure in themselves, or I think that they just had a mean spirit about them. And that was just something that they felt more powerful, like you said.
Well, how did you handle it?
Well, when I was a kid, I didn't handle it as well as I did later as an adult, but I just was kind of sad and lonely and would kind of just cry in my room a bit. But as I became an adult and I learned to understand things more, the Lord really brought me through a better understanding of what it means to embrace who you are in Him and the unique differences He made you to be, and to try less to conform just to be like everyone else, and to be okay that if God likes you and you like you, then that's all right, and that's all that matters.
Tell me about your parents and how they helped you through this.
They were always there with a listening ear, which meant so much to me. Even if they couldn't fix the problems, they were still there to walk through them with me and just be kind.
How old were you when you became a follower of Jesus?
Well, my family, we always loved the Lord and went to church, and I was definitely a VeggieTales kid and grew up on those. But my faith really became my own when I was around 12, 13. And I really started to question, well, who is God? I go, I don't want to just pray to the ceiling kind of thing and have this mystery, because my parents know who He is, but I'd like to know more. And so I actually began to read the Bible for myself, and I began to pray more and just start to develop and ask questions. And that's really where that relationship was fostered and started.
Do you remember the moment you said, yes, Lord, I'm going to follow you?
I do. There were kind of two instances. I remember being around 3 or 4 years old in church, and I really got excited, and I was like, yeah, I want to be in on this God thing. And then again, as a teenager, I just remember reading the Bible and really standing firm and almost kind of like feeling like I was grabbing Jesus' hand and saying, I want to do life with you.
Were you involved in anything? Sports or?
A little bit. I played softball and as a middle school mainly, and it got a little too competitive in high school. So I was involved in that a little bit, and then that's about it for clubs.
No sports then in high school either?
No, I kind of quit that after the girls got a little too tall for me, and I'm a little too petite.
Well, I love what God has done in your life, because He's taken you from being shy and bullied into a whole new ministry of writing books, speaking, blogging, and we're going to talk about it when we come back.
Okay.
Callie, were you glad when high school was finished?
Oh, so very much. Yeah, I was pretty relieved when we were done with high school.
What is one memory that you just, it just brings just feelings of, insecurity or frustration? Or did you have a lot of those? Or is there one thing that just really sticks out in your mind that it's just like, oh Lord, where are you taking me? Why am I going through this?
Oh man, I could probably name 5 or 6 off base, but probably remembering there was this one guy in high school who used to purposely hit me with his guitar case when I'd be walking in the hallway. And I was just in a rowdy mood. This was my senior year. And he had done that earlier in the day. And then we had a chemistry test that afternoon. And so before chemistry, we had study hall. And he walks over to me and he's like, I didn't study at all. Can you teach me everything we need to know for the test? And I just said, oh, so you remember my name now? And it was the only time I was probably a little sassy back. But I remember feeling so down because I thought, 2 hours ago, you purposely hit me with your guitar case, and now you basically want to cheat off me for the test. But yeah, that one stung.
So after high school, you went to college. What was that like? Where'd you go?
Well, I started at Randolph-Macon College, and then I ended up transferring to Regent University, which was a wonderful school. I actually had a lot of health problems in college, and so I did a good amount of my schooling online, and Regent was just a wonderful place.
Can you talk about your health problems, or do you?
Yeah, I had some problems with GI through my college years and had a few surgeries, but I'm doing a lot better now, which I'm grateful, and I guess well over 10 years out. But Regent was great because it facilitated where I could be online when I needed to be, and then I could be on campus eventually as well.
What were those years like?
Regent was great. I definitely found more like-minded people. I found people who you get a little bit more diversity in the way of, creativity and things like that. And so I think I found myself a lot more in college than I did in high school. And I think I started to become more of the person that I was meant to be, and less of this kind of
almost a
hidden
freedom.
in the shadows. Yeah, exactly.
It's a freedom.
Yeah.
So did you know you were going to be a writer?
It's funny because looking back, I think somehow all along, I think I knew, but it wasn't just completely apparent to me. I always loved writing. I remember as a kid being such a journaler and I would write little newspapers and stuff and give them to my family members. So I think it was there. I just wasn't fully aware of it until I was in my college years.
So you wrote several books now. Tell me about the first book.
The first book, I really wrote it for my youth kids. When I moved back from Minnesota for working for Apple, I began working as a school teacher.
Now, wait a second. Is this after college?
Way after college,
okay,
yeah.
You worked for Apple?
I did. I worked for Apple for 2 years after college.
Okay, we need to talk about that. What was it? Okay, so after college, you moved to
Minnesota,
and you started working for Apple.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I was in treatments at the Mayo Clinic out there for some of the health things that I had because I had a very rare condition. And so I was working at Apple in Mall of America, of all places, which talk about having to be outgoing. It's probably one of the busiest Apples there are, but it was a great place to work. And
did you meet a lot of friends?
That's actually where a lot of my core friends I still have actually came from that job or from an offshoot of that job, which is crazy. We had a really great Bible study at that location too, which was really great. And I still keep up with a lot of those people every day. And I haven't worked for them for 8 years.
So God was moving in your life.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
So after Apple, what happened?
I moved back to Virginia and I took a teaching job. The Lord put it on my heart that it was time to teach. And that was not something I necessarily saw for myself. But I said, well, Lord, if you'll lead me there, I'll trust you and we'll do it. And so this is my 8th year teaching now.
Oh, so you're teaching now?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a U.S. history teacher and a Western State teacher. 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I have the big kids.
Isn't it interesting that God took you those years that affected you, and now you are teaching those kids at the same age?
Exactly. And what was crazy was actually at Apple. They had a field trip come in, and they asked me, the person who was supposed to run and facilitate the field trip couldn't that day, so they asked me to. And there were 2 girls who were picking on a smaller girl. And I just identified with that smaller girl, just so much. She had brought her Barbie doll with her. And they were probably 11 or 12 years old. And they were just relentlessly picking on her about it. And I froze for a second because I remembered being in that same situation and feeling like that. And I thought, wait, I'm the adult here now. I can actually do something about it. So I came at it from the side. And instead of reprimanding the 2 older girls for bullying, I complimented and said how cool the doll was for the little girl, and the 2 older girls just instantly were like, oh no, I have one at home too. Yeah, I do too. It is really cool, because they wanted my approval. And that was something that God really used. So when he asked me to teach, I thought, okay, it's because you want me to make a difference in children's lives, because I didn't have a teacher doing that for me.
I was going to ask you, did anybody stick up for you at school?
No, but I was so thankful for the opportunity that I could change that and have the opportunity to be there for the underdog as a teacher.
That has to be a tough job.
It very much is, especially through COVID. That was quite the undertaking. But in working with them and working with the youth at my church, I really began to develop just so much of a heart for teenagers. And so for my first book, it was actually just kind of a collection of blogs and journal entries and things that eventually became a manicured book of just being a big sister in Christ and offering some loving advice to young women and encouraging them to get to know God for themselves.
Is there somebody that you can think of right now that you've taught that you know that you've changed her life?
Oh.
Or an incident where she came up to you and said, you've done this for me?
There have been some really sweet ones. I'll get emotional and I don't want to ruin my makeup. No. But one in particular, sweetest girl, she reached out to me about 6 months after I was her teacher, and she invited me to her baptism. And she shared that because I would pray in class, and sometimes I would just, if there was an opportunity, I would take the first 10, 15 minutes and we would just pray together, or we would have an instance. And outside of class, she'd reach out to me for just kind of advice, like big sister in Christ advice. And she said, you had such an impact on my faith, and now I'm going to be baptized, and it would mean so much if you were able to come. Aww. And that just meant the world to me, because I don't think there's a higher honor you could get. And I was grateful that the Lord allowed me just to be just his vessel, because that was the Holy Spirit. And I was really grateful to get to be his vessel that day.
You know, it only takes one person to change the life of another person.
It's true.
And we're going to talk about your new book, The Wallflower That Bloomed, when we come back. Well, we're living in a culture with the teens, and crazy things are happening. Mm-hmm. You're around them all the time. What do you say to them?
Try to encourage them that their voice matters and their story matters. I think a lot of times they'll think that, they're just another person, and so how can they impact the world? And so I think encouraging them that who they are on this planet is very intentional from the Lord, and they carry within them a specific journey, and it's in the grand story of the Lord. And we need who they are, we need who they're becoming. And so if they have a huge life ahead of them, or what we would call ordinary, I don't think ordinary is a true thing. I think everyone is made to be extraordinary and to carry forward a story that is going to impact generations to come. So to make it something that's a good story and not one that's going to have a bad impact going forward.
Now, you work with a lot of women, or a lot of teen girls. Do you ever get any teen guys that come up and you've impacted their lives?
It's been amazing. I had a student in particular. He came to my speaking event that I had last year in Minnesota, and he came to the church, and it was so great to see him because I hadn't seen him in quite a while. And he bought my book. He said, I know this is supposed to be a girl book, right? But I feel like this could help me. And so if you don't think it's weird, I'm going to buy it and listen and read it. And it made me so happy because I thought, oh my gosh, yes, this can help you. And it was cool to see he reached out to me a few months ago, and he said that the book had blessed him a lot, and it kind of gave him an inside look at women and to have a better understanding. And so it was neat to see how the Lord had used a book that was far more geared towards women to actually bless and impact a young man.
That's an idea for you.
Exactly.
To write something for the teen guys. I raised all boys. I didn't have a girl, but I dealt with, the issues that you have dealt with, and I've worked with teen girls in the past and saw the issues. And I remember my son saying to me, why haven't you done anything for teen boys? And I thought, that kind of really, touched me. And it's like, why haven't I?
Yeah.
Because the guys are dealing with issues also.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you see that with the kids that you're working with?
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of times there's not necessarily a resource for them. And usually they'll share, a good book they're reading or something like that, or somebody at their church. But it is interesting to see that there is quite a need.
There, I gave you an idea.
You did.
You're working with Crosswalk also.
I do.
Tell me about that.
Oh, I love working with them. I worked for them, I think 2015, 2016. I started writing articles for them. And it's a gift. I'm mainly in the Christian encouragement and singles column right now.
So it's all blogs and...
Articles and things like that.
What are you writing about?
Different things. I had the beautiful opportunity to actually write a tribute piece for Charles Stanley when he passed, which he's one of my heroes of the faith. So that was such a gift for me. But also just different things like encouraging singles and waiting for God's best and for His timing, encouraging people, and just who are maybe feeling depressed and things like that, that there is hope in the Lord and ways to maybe rediscover faith with Him, just all kinds of articles.
There's a teenage girl listening. What would you say to her?
I think I would say don't discount the season you're in and know that it is worthwhile. And even though you probably think life is never going to change.
I think that's key, isn't it? I mean, they think, oh, is this ever? And it's going to change.
It's going to change, yeah. And it can be so much better. And don't discount what God's doing in you and through you and in this season and behind the scenes. Because when He acts swiftly and suddenly, and we see it. But He's been doing so much behind the scenes, and He's been doing an inner work. So I think I'd say trust Him and get to know Him all the better and just let Him lead you.
So what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm excited to see. I think that's almost advice to myself too, even in my 30s. I'm excited to see what the Lord has next. I'm excited. I'm going to start writing for The Rooted Truth as well, which I'm looking forward to. And I have a couple of book ideas, and you've just given me another one. So that might be what's next.
Callie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such a blessing to sit down with you.
Thank you so much. You too.
My friend, are you struggling? Are you in a place where you feel all alone, that nobody is there? Jesus is by your side. Take His hand today. This is today's Nashville. This is faith.